There is a generation that remembers a world that no longer exists, yet lives fully inside the one that replaced it. They are old enough to recall life before the internet, but young enough to depend on it every single day. They remember cassette tapes and dial-up tones, but they also navigate streaming platforms and endless notifications without hesitation. Psychologists sometimes call them Xennials, a small bridge generation born between the late 1976s and early 1985s, and their psychology is quietly fascinating. Because unlike the generations before or after them, Xennials didn't grow up entirely analog or entirely digital. They grew up in transition, which means their identity was shaped by two completely different versions of reality. If you ask many Xennials about childhood, their memories often feel slower, almost cinematic. They remember afternoons that stretched for hours without interruption. Phones stayed attached to walls. If you wanted to talk to someone, you had to call their house and hope they were home. There was no constant digital presence, no group chats lighting up your pocket every minute. For many Xennials, childhood meant something increasingly rare today: unstructured time. Time spent wandering neighborhoods. Time spent outside until the streetlights came on. Time spent learning boredom before discovering imagination. Psychologically, this created something important. It built a strong sense of internal world building. Children who grow up without constant stimulation often learn how to entertain themselves through curiosity, creativity, and reflection. Many Xennials developed an early habit of thinking deeply, daydreaming often, and observing the world quietly. But that analog childhood also carried a different kind of emotional structure. Social interactions happened face to face, not through screens. Conflict, embarrassment, friendship, and rejection unfolded in real time. There was no editing a message before sending it. No deleting a post. Every moment existed in the physical world. And that shaped how Xennials relate to people even today. They often carry a deep appreciation for authentic presence, something that can feel rare in an age of constant digital interaction. But childhood was only the first half of their story. Because while they grew up in a slow world, adulthood arrived in a completely different one. For Xennials, technology didn't gradually appear. It exploded. In their teenage or early adult years, the world changed faster than almost any generation had experienced before. Suddenly, there were email accounts, then search engines, then social media, then smartphones. Within a single decade, the rhythm of life accelerated. Psychologically, this created a strange dual awareness. Xennials remember life before constant connectivity, which means they know what silence feels like. They know what it means to be unreachable. They remember a time when information wasn't instantly available. But they also adapted to the digital world faster than older generations. They learned the new systems, navigated new platforms, and built careers inside a rapidly evolving technological environment. This creates a subtle psychological tension. Part of them still values the quiet simplicity of the past. Another part has fully integrated into the speed of the present. So many Xennials live with a quiet sense of comparison, not between themselves and others, but between two different versions of reality. One that was slower, more physical, more private, and another that is faster, more connected, and more overwhelming. This dual perspective gives Xennials something unusual. They can see both the advantages and the hidden costs of modern life. But this awareness comes with its own emotional weight. Because when you remember how things used to feel, the modern world sometimes seems louder than necessary. And for Xennials, that realization shapes how they move through adulthood in ways most people don't notice. There is a quiet psychological role Xennials often play in the modern world. They become bridges, not by choice, but by circumstance. They are old enough to understand the mindset of older generations who built their lives in a slower, pre-digital era. But they are also young enough to understand the language, technology, and pace of younger generations who grew up entirely online. This creates a unique social position. In workplaces, Xennials often find themselves translating between different worlds. They understand why older colleagues value stability, hierarchy, and traditional communication. But they also understand why younger workers prioritize flexibility, digital efficiency, and autonomy. Psychologically, this ability to navigate multiple perspectives often makes Xennials adaptable and empathetic. They learned early that the world can change quickly and that survival sometimes requires adjusting rather than resisting. But constantly standing between worlds can also feel exhausting. When you belong partially to two different cultural eras, it sometimes feels like you belong fully to neither. Older generations may see them as too modern. Younger generations may see them as slightly outdated. So, Xennials often develop a subtle psychological trait: quiet independence. Instead of trying to perfectly fit into one generational identity, they create their own internal balance between the two. If you talk to many Xennials long enough, a certain emotional pattern begins to appear. It's not just nostalgia, it's something deeper. Because nostalgia for Xennials isn't simply about childhood cartoons or old music. It's about remembering a different relationship with time itself. In the analog world, information traveled slowly. News arrived through newspapers or evening broadcasts. Friendships grew through repeated physical presence rather than constant digital contact. There were pauses between moments, waiting for a song to play on the radio, waiting for film photos to develop, waiting days or weeks for a letter to arrive. Those pauses created a rhythm that modern life rarely allows. Today, nearly everything is immediate. Messages arrive instantly. Entertainment streams endlessly. News updates by the minute. And for Xennials, the contrast between these two speeds can feel psychologically disorienting. They remember a world where attention moved slowly, but they now live in one where attention is constantly fragmented. This is why many Xennials feel a subtle fatigue with digital culture, not because they reject technology, but because they remember how life felt without it. They know what it's like to sit in a room without reaching for a phone, to be unreachable for an afternoon, to let boredom exist without immediately filling it. Psychologists sometimes describe this as temporal contrast, awareness, the ability to compare two entirely different experiences of time. And that awareness changes how Xennials relate to the present. While some generations accept the pace of modern life as normal, Xennials often sense something missing beneath the speed. A kind of quiet space that once existed between moments. But this awareness doesn't always make life easier. Because when you remember a slower world, the modern one can sometimes feel overwhelming. And yet, Xennials continue to move forward, adapting again and again, carrying the memory of both worlds inside them. Growing up between two eras did more than create nostalgia. It created resilience. Xennials experienced a world that shifted beneath their feet. Careers changed. Technology redefined industries. Communication styles evolved almost overnight. And because they witnessed this transformation in real time, many Xennials developed a psychological habit of continuous adaptation. They learned that stability is often temporary. Jobs change. Technologies disappear. Entire industries reinvent themselves. While this can create uncertainty, it also cultivates a certain strength. Many Xennials become skilled problem solvers. They are comfortable learning new systems, adjusting their routines, and navigating unexpected change. But resilience has a hidden cost. When you become the person who can handle change, people often expect you to keep handling it. Over time, many Xennials carry a quiet sense of responsibility toward their work, their families, their communities. They are the generation that remembers the old ways, but also manages the new ones. And that role can sometimes feel heavy because adapting to change requires emotional energy. And emotional energy, like anything else, can slowly run low. As adulthood deepens, many Xennials begin asking themselves a subtle but powerful question. Not about success, not about achievement, but about balance. They've seen the speed of modern life. They've participated in it. They've built careers within it. But they also remember something else: the value of quiet, the value of presence, the value of moments that aren't immediately documented or shared. So many Xennials begin to move toward a different rhythm of life. They may limit social media. They may prioritize smaller circles of genuine relationships. They may seek experiences that feel slower, more intentional. This isn't rejection of the modern world. It's integration, a quiet attempt to combine the wisdom of the analog past with the possibilities of the digital present. Psychologically, this makes Xennials one of the most reflective generations alive today. They don't simply accept change. They evaluate it. They ask whether progress is truly progress, whether speed is always necessary, whether connection can still exist beneath the noise of modern communication. And sometimes the answers they find are surprisingly simple. That not everything valuable needs to happen quickly. That attention is more precious than information. And that real connection often lives in the quiet spaces technology cannot reach. If you look closely, the Psychology of Xennials tells a story larger than one generation. It tells the story of transition, a group of people who remember a slower world but learned to survive in a faster one, who experienced childhood without the internet and adulthood defined by it. And because of that, they carry something rare: perspective. They know what life looked like before constant connectivity, which means they understand something many people today are still trying to rediscover. That attention is fragile, that time is meaningful, and that not every moment needs to be accelerated. Being a Xennial sometimes feels like standing in a doorway between two rooms. Behind you is a world of cassette tapes, handwritten notes, and quiet afternoons. In front of you is a world of streaming platforms, digital networks, and endless information. But maybe that doorway is exactly where perspective lives. Because the people who have seen both worlds often understand life in a deeper way. They know that progress can be powerful, but they also know something just as important: that sometimes the most meaningful moments in life are the ones that happen slowly, the ones that don't need an update, a notification, or an audience. Just presence. And maybe that's the quiet psychology of Xennials. Not a generation defined by technology or nostalgia, but by their ability to remember where the world came from while still learning how to move forward.